Good morning, everyone. This is a special meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation Board of Directors. This is to meet the candidates. This is Friday, October 7th, at 10 a.m. in the boardroom. Those of you who can join us on Zoom may join through the link. Zoom us at 9813-125-7242, or you may call in at 669-900-6833. The access code is 981-3125-7242. Welcome, everyone. Acknowledge the press through our Village TV, and welcome honorable board members and honored guests. And our candidates, welcome. Please remember to turn your cell phones off so that we don't interfere with the broadcast. My name is Joan Milliman. I am the Secretary of the Grf Board. First item of business is to approve the agenda, and the agenda is meet the candidates. Are there any objections to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. I want to introduce to you Juanita Skillman, Director from GRF, who will act as our moderator today. The next thing is that one of the candidates was elected by the third board, and that was Egon Garthofner. And he was appointed by the third board on September 30th, 2022. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Director Skillman.
Thank you, Director Milliman. Good morning, everybody, and particularly good morning, candidates. We're glad to have you with us today. I'm sorry to say that one of our candidates, Andrew Ginocchio, is out of the country and will not be part of this forum today. But I remind you, after the forum, I think you already have appointments. You need to go upstairs and film your statements to be put on TV. It will be shown every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. And we hope Andrew, when he gets back, will be able to do at least his filmed statement. Now, I'd like to just quickly go over the agenda, the rules, what we're going to be doing today. First of all, each of the candidates, as I introduce you, is going to have 3 minutes to give your opening statement. Then I will have questions for each candidate, and as a group, some for all candidates, some specific to a candidate. We've had some questions that have been sent in by directors that wanted these questions asked to a specific candidate. And you'll have 2 minutes to respond to that. And then I will close the questioning promptly at 11:45 so that we have time for each of you to make a 2-minute closing statement. Are there any questions on the format? Hearing none, let's get started. All right, our first candidate, and they did draw for place as to who would be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, is Yvonne Hartin. Yvonne, would you give us your opening statement, please?
Thank you, Director. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Yvonne Horton. I'm running for the Grf Board because I believe my 3 years of experience on the board plus 30 years corporate management plus 8 years experience on a not-for-profit recreation board makes me uniquely qualified. Understanding the trust in the governing documents for GRF is paramount. As a board member, I clearly understand my responsibilities, and I see my responsibility as preserving our assets and spending our money wisely. As a board member, I can quantify the savings that I've made. I initiated changes to the obsolete inventory policy to send our obsolete inventory to auction straight away, which saved hundreds of hours of labor costs in cataloging these broken and obsolete inventory items to try to sell to our residents. It was my idea to compost the manure at the equestrian center, which resulted in a $70,000 a year savings. I was part of the team that turned the equestrian center around financially, Laguna Woods' first and oldest amenity. Also, the Renaissance Fair was my idea, which was enjoyed by 700 plus residents. Because I'm the chair of the CAC committee, I've always tried to think of ways to improve the residents' recreation experience. Currently, I'm working on finding more rentable space in our village. This will help the clubs and possibly offset some expenses to GRF. If elected, I look forward to exploring new ways of cutting costs and making our village more efficient. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yvonne. All right, our next candidate is Lenny Ross. Lenny, would you give us your opening statement, please?
Sure. My name is Lenny Ross. I've decided to run for a position on GRF Board. My goals and vision for securing a GRF Board position are to utilize my financial and managerial experience to confirm we are getting best value and dollars from all vendors. We must confirm Sageview, our financial advisor, is doing everything possible to meet our financial objectives. I am currently a United director on their finance committee. Sageview is providing investment advice to both GRF and United. The results so far, GRF and United assets are down by around $1 million since the beginning of 2022. And upcoming interest rate hikes will likely pull our assets down further. Had GRF and United change investments to T-bills in the beginning of this year, GRF would now be up about $600,000, and United would now be up around $400,000. I'd like to do the same thing we're now doing on United. We would secure other professional advisors, advise plus set up an ad hoc committee made up of members with investment experience to come up with the best ways to increase our assets. We must exercise maximum control over our budgets to confirm our HOA annual increases remain minimal. If we are going to spend over $500,000 on a project, we must be sure it is absolutely necessary, and our estimated costs, as confirmed by GRF and M&C, provided to all the board members, should be the lowest possible cost. If elected, I will volunteer to be on GRF Finance Committee to root out any waste, fraud, and abuse, and replace it with best practices. I have learned over my career to be sure all of our residents are getting the best value for their hard-earned assessments. Thank you.
Okay. Our next candidate is James Hopkins. Jim, can you give us your opening statement, please?
Sure, thank you. I've been a resident in Laguna Woods since 2013, and I was voted on the GRF board in July 2020, and to complete the term of a resigned member. I served as GRF treasurer since 2020. My professional background, I was trained in corporate finance and accounting, and I've had background in finance, accounting, operations, small business, and as an executive, my executive training or executive experience, I've got 20 years with IBM in accounting, planning, pricing, and operations management. I was manager of the corporate worldwide consolidation at IBM. I had plant controllership at IBM, was a pricing analyst for displays and the PC. I was the lead accounting manager for the IBM internal annual audit for the entire company. There were other folks there, but I was the direct manager. I've been CFO of several small companies and startups, up to $150 million, including a Bronx Cummins engine distributor, Cummins Metropower. I've been CFO of RSLI, president of remote light upon the fortunate death of the president. And I've been with startup companies called MCF Golf Virtual Technologies. I also served as Director of Finance for Friendship Baptist Church in Yorba Linda. I've owned and operated Alpha Graphics for 3 years. Okay. As treasurer, I've served as chair of the Finance Committee, the Select Audit Committee, the ITAC Committee, and during that time, my accomplishments as treasurer and as ITAC chair, we restructured the reserve analysis and planning to keep resident contribution consistent for the foreseeable future. In the past, if you looked at the projection, it had gone from I think $17 a month to a high of $36 a month in the 30-year projection. Our projections today hold that steady at about 17. We worked with VMS executives to design subtle changes in the budgeting process, promoting knowledge, teamwork, and shared goals versus the adversarial process we were experiencing before. The analysis of the trust facilities fee has led to a contribution to the reserve fund. There's the decision support team to select a vendor and process to implement the ERP. My continuing goal as a GRF board member is to continue to work towards process and analytics improvement. I believe the right process consistently applied will yield the best result, whether it is in decision-making or cutting the lawn. Another goal is to continue to work towards improved communication.
Speaker, time is up.
Among all boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Bryan. Catherine, would you have an opening statement for us, please?
I do, and thank you, Benita. Good morning, everyone. A very big thankful from me to all the corporate members for volunteering for this community. We have 5 boards in the village and run by volunteer labor, and each board has huge responsibilities as they are large corporations working for the common good of our residents. I am Catherine Bryans and became a resident of Laguna Woods in 2008. After a couple years of trying not to get lost in the village, I decided to run for the United Board of Directors. Having an idea of what assessments were for, I wanted to see where the money went, how it was allocated, and the spending procedure. I was elected to the United Board and began a journey in community governance. I served as United's vice president, chaired the M&C committee, co-chaired the landscape committee, and attended United financial committees. I was assigned GRF committees, including M&C, landscape, security, and then communications, now referred to as media and communications. I wish to serve on the GRF board because my 8 years of being a community docent taught me how important our amenities are to prospective residents. I saw my community reflected through their eyes and wished to be a part of keeping those amenities as first-class facilities. We are in the best part of Southern California and a prime part of Orange County. We have so much to offer within the community and so much within driving distance. Property values stay strong, not just by physical location, but by good governance. My financial investment in the village, and yours, is enhanced and protected by maintaining and always improving what we have to offer. I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And just for our audience to know, there is a timer that all of the candidates can see that shows them how much time they have. So our corporate secretary keeps a good eye on that. All right, our last candidate today is Bunny Carpenter. Bunny, can we have your opening statement, please?
Thank you. My name is Lenny Carpenter, and I'm currently the GRF president. GRF is a business, and there are financial decisions that impact the village. The board oversees the GRF trust properties and amenities and make decisions that have direct impact on the community. I have 8 years of board experience and a diverse background. I have 35 years of legal contracts and purchasing, policies and procedures, real estate, property managed. I managed 3 shopping centers, investments, and a broad experience in business. During my term on GRF, I was lead participant in the effort to update the GRF bylaws to provide clarity of the trust paragraph and provision and committee structure. I chaired an ad hoc committee to return the Equestrian Center back to its glory. My legal contract knowledge and experience enables me to work with staff in writing operating rules and policies. I review every document and contract submitted to GRF. I authored the master contracts for the ERP system. While serving on the third mutual board, I was instrumental in developing standard terms and conditions for contracts and developing a purchasing policy that is used by GRF United and Third. I also served on landscape, communication, M&C executive committees, and GRF landscape and M&C committees while on Third. My desire to continue serving are projects that are just beginning and have a big impact on the village future. I am involved in the ERP project, and that is going to, in 2023, the first phase will be installed. I wish to follow through with the purchasing process, which I am uniquely qualified. Building and landscape entertaining and irrigation and big projects for the next couple of years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now go to the prepared questions that we have. And the first one would go to Yvonne. Yvonne, how can GRF work best with all the other boards?
Well, I work with the boards. As a committee chair, on each committee, there's 2 representatives from each one of the boards. They all have input on anything that we are working on. Any decisions that we made is a joint decision between all of them. I think that I work well with them and they work well with me.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Lenny Ross. And this comes from one of our directors who sent in a question. Why do you want to serve as a GRF board member at this time? Why do you feel that you can serve the community better on GRF than staying on United?
Well, I think I can contribute quite a bit on GRF. If I'm elected, I'd like to serve on the Finance Committee because I think I see that there's some deficiencies in the way we've invested our assets in finance in the committee, and I don't think Sageview is being held up as being the top investment advisor, and I think we can do much better than having Sageview. We have to look at other professional investment advisors and get some opinions from members who maybe through an ad hoc committee, we have investment advisors from our community come in and give their advice, listen to some professional advisors, maybe utilize Bank of America or other professional advisors that we do business with to give their opinions. But I think coming from the finance side and the money side, I think I can do a good job at finding out how we can do the best possible, we can make the best possible return on our investments while keeping our investments as sound and safe as possible. Right now, we have investments in corporate bonds. We should be nowhere near corporate bonds. That should be half of our investments. So we need to in my opinion, we need to take a closer look at how our investments are invested and come up with better ways of getting positive returns instead of, as I said, the beginning of 2022, this year, our returns have been minus $1 million. So I think I can work towards improving that.
Thank you. Okay, our next question goes to Jim Hopkins. Jim, there has been an inordinate amount of publicity concerning the surplus, operating surplus for GRF, with a lot of misinformation as well. Would you please tell us what the real story is on the operating surplus and what, how it is given back to the members?
Okay, thank you. I think, first, I'm going to refer to the Green Book. I don't know how many of you have actually looked at the Green Book. The Green Book, actually, when you look at our budget, you see a return of surplus line item in the Green Book in every budget. For the last 2 years, we have returned $8 per manor per month, and I think this year upcoming, it's going to be $12 per manor per month. And that particular surplus is actually reaching into the future. We had a surplus in last year, which we have yet to apply for the following year, because we actually pulled it forward in the interest of getting the lowest. We had more surplus last year than we had prior. So we actually pulled it forward to ensure that the residents got the best bang for the buck. So it's not, and I've read the article in the paper. Okay, it's not true. And we're going to go back with some numbers specifically to show that that person is mistaken. And essentially that it's what has happened, and I feel personally attacked by it because I'm treasurer, and the comments border on accusing us of malfeasance, and that's what they border on. But the surplus every year has been given back as highlighted in the Green Book, which I urge everybody to take out and read.
Thank you. All right. Our next question goes to Catherine. Catherine, what document establishes GRF's authority?
The document is the trust, and then followed by the operating rules.
Okay, can you explain that a little more?
Well, basically the trust sets the groundwork for protecting and the mutuals and the responsibilities of the mutual. The trust is the overlying document where everything works below it, but it's always to the benefit of the mutuals and their members.
Thank you. Next question goes to Bunny. Bunny, what are the top 3 characteristics of a good board member?
Okay, the top 3 characteristics we have to go back to, and pardon me if I read this, okay? It's basically the fiduciary duty of the board of directors. So the fiduciary duty of the HO board of members has 3 components. And one is the duty of loyalty, duty of care, and duty to act within the scope of the authority. So if you go back to the duty of loyalty requires a director to refrain from engaging in conduct that places their interests above those of the association and its membership. So the duty of care requires the directors to be diligent in performing their responsibilities as directors of the association. And the duty to act within the scope of authority is they cannot act to make decisions on matters that are outside of the boundaries of their roles and HOA responsibility to homeowners. HOA boards must read the governing documents and educate themselves on the limitations of their authority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we go back to Yvonne. Yvonne, we're going to shake things up just a little bit. We've been asking you specific questions about board experience and board thought. We'd like to get to know you a little bit better. So, what was your favorite book, author, or movie?
Wow. Well, my favorite author is W.E.B. Griffin, and he writes sagas, war sagas. My favorite movie, I guess, anything by Steven Spielberg. What was the other question?
No, that was it. Book, author, or movie?
Well, Book, author, or movie. Yeah, anything by Steven Spielberg. Is there anything else I can answer for you?
Oh, you're going to get
Something
lots
a
more.
little. I've had a lot of experience, and I could work on M&C or CAC. I worked on the board at Coda de Casa, and it had been rented out for 10 years. And when we got it back, it was in dire need of repair. And for 7 years, I worked categorizing and prioritizing the repairs of Coda de Casa to bring it back to where it is. And we had there, if I can mention a few, a country club, a swimming pool, a tennis courts, handball courts, equestrian center that housed 250 horses, a shooting range for trap and skeet. All of those things needed repair, and I was one of the prime people that made that happen.
You're getting off the subject and not answering
I
my
know,
question.
but I don't want to talk about what my favorite things are.
Okay.
That was one of my favorite things, was to make that happen.
All right, next we'll go to Lenny. And Lenny, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's your favorite book, author, or movie?
Favorite movie? I'd say Wizard of Oz. That would be my favorite movie. I love the characters in that, and I love the singing and dancing, and very entertaining movie. And I agree with you that Spielberg movies are fantastic as well. So I'd leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Jim, we come to you with the same question. Let's learn a little bit more about you.
I was hoping-
What is your favorite book, author, or movie?
I was hoping the question would change, but let me rephrase the question for you, if I can. I don't like to read long-winded books, et cetera, I really like periodicals about business, leadership, organizational behavior, people-centered kind of articles, wide range of those things, trying to understand the underpinnings of what makes decision-making difficult and why it's not one-dimensional. I like all of those types of things. In terms of movies and things like that, when I look at a movie, I just like to relax, and sometimes it doesn't matter what the movie is. I guess one of my favorite movies, I can't remember what the name of it was now, but as a kid, War of the Worlds. I may be 5 or 6 years old, and that just stimulated me as a 5 or 6 year old. And so I was never been stimulated by a movie since. Okay? And maybe that says something about me, but at any rate, that's my favorite movie.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, we come to you with the same question.
I was hoping you changed.
No, we're trying to get to know a little
But I
bit
had
about
more
you as a
time than
person.
Yvonne, which is good, to think about it. And I don't know about you, but have you ever looked at your library list and your history? And I've been told I've saved thousands of dollars by using our village library. And I think I love the mysteries, and so I love James Lee Burke and Lisa Scottoline, and those are so many books that I've read by them, I couldn't pick out one. But those are just two of the ones I really tend to go to, and if I was going to do a movie, I'd do something really schmaltzy like Notting Hill. That was always fun. It's still fun to watch. So that would be my favorite movie and just about any book in our library.
Thank you for the
For the PR?
PR
You bet.
for the library. Yes. Okay, Bunny, it's your turn now. What's your favorite book, author, movie?
Okay, I do not have any favorite book. I do not have any favorite author. And I love all kinds of movies. I'm a very diverse person. Okay, except for horror movies. Those I don't like. So anyway, my reading has been to educate myself all through my life. You know, I was a single mother for many years. I had to figure out how to raise my kids and how to provide for them. And so most of my reading is basically how to get to the next level. I actually, got my BA degree while I was working as a buyer, so I had to study, and go to college while I was working at the same time. One of my favorite subjects was psychology. Okay, so I have read many, many books on learning about people, how they think, what they do, because that really, really interests me. And then I spent a lot of time learning about investments. Went to classes. I have probably gone to more classes than any lawyer or doctor than you can imagine. So my background, and you can understand that because as a contracts writer and everything, I like to research. So that's what you need to know about me is that I really like to research. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're back to Yvonne. Yvonne, what skills, experience, and expertise do you have that will most benefit GRF?
Recreation. I know recreation. I play golf. I use Clubhouse 4. I have played tennis, pickleball. Any amenity that we have, I've done. I can't, and I think also that the clubs really do a service for our community. I can't think of anything else to say except I am an advocate for this community.
Okay, thank you. Lenny, please share a current GRF policy that you would change and tell us why.
Why didn't I get that?
I think I went to the wrong person. I would say the policy that should be looked at and that's affecting the real estate community is the transfer fee. Now, it's recently been increased to $7,500, which doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it is for people that are buying Cadizes, one-bedroom properties. And so I would look at if there's any possibility to reduce that fee to increase the demand for real estate. Now, real estate has done very well, but with interest rates continuing to increase, I think it's going to start hurting our economy, and it is hurting our economy. And it's going to start affecting the sales of our condos and our co-ops. And therefore, I think that we should take a look at that. And this may be very controversial, but maybe we should look at, if we do increase that fee, we should look at sharing some of that fee to the other mutuals. Why, the other mutuals are getting older too. Their properties are wearing down, just like our amenities are, and they need some support. So why don't we share some of that transfer fee amongst United, amongst GRF and Third? Those are just some considerations that I've thought about in the past, and that might help our community going forward. Thank you.
Can we say that you have a vested interest in this? You are a full-time real estate?
I'm a part-time realtor. At this time of my life, I don't do anything full-time anymore. I don't have the energy or strength, but I do work for Laguna Premier Realty, part-time realtor, so I own up to that. And I'm looking forward to continue that as well.
Okay. Jim? With almost all costs for GRF continuing to rise every year, as they are throughout the nation, what specific ideas do you propose to control costs within the village?
Okay, I tend to shy away from specifics. And the reason I do that is because, once you have ratcheted down on all of the easy targets, it's organizational efficiency. And that's a very broad term, but it's organizational efficiency. And that's not done by beating down putting a hammer on it. It's done by looking at things in a smart way, looking at all the processes, installing a new ERP system that will be paperless, that will allow us to optimize the people content, which, by the way, we know is 60 to 65% of all the cost. In California, just raised the minimum wages, and they continue to do so. But even that, given inflation, a minimum wage doesn't buy you anything today. You can go out and make more money working at fast food than you can on some of the jobs here. Okay, we have constant turnover and on the hourly wage people, and the VMS staff works tirelessly to try to enthusiastically generate the enthusiasm to serve us on a daily basis. So there's not one single thing. It's an overall approach that I look at to mitigate cost. We are part of the country. We are part of the community. We are affected by the same things that the outside is. Inflation is 8%. All right? And it's not going to get any better. Jobs are going up. People are offering jobs. Companies are offering jobs out there. We're competing for that too. So we have to keep all of that in mind. It's not a single dimension. The question is multifaceted.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine. What do you think is the most critical issue in the village, and how would you work to resolve it?
Personally, I think the most critical issue facing this community is the community itself, and how we work together, and how we speak to each other, and how we present ourselves. It is a community, and it's one of the things that drew me here, not just housing and not amenities, but it was a sense of community. And so I think that was one. If my background in communication helps with that, I think speaking clearly, taking time to think, and expressing yourself well are things that all of us can do to change this sort of feeling that seems to be coming about. It's not very pleasant, and it probably deserves some hard look at how we speak to each other and how we handle things that aren't going our way.
Thank you. All right, Bunny, what examples for transparency for committee and board meetings do you propose other than those already used by GRF and VMS?
Well, right now, I do believe in, and it was determined by some of the focus groups that all the boards need to work on transparency. And one of the items basically was committees, that they don't know what's happening with the committees. And so at this point in time, I would have to say that I'm willing to work with our communications and to figure out the best way to communicate what our actual committees are doing. Now with GRF, we have a structure so that there is representatives from all mutuals. And so it is the responsibilities of those directors from the mutuals to go back to their boards and to basically let their boards know what GRF is doing. But I am agreed, I am wanting to work on this issue and improve the transparency and communication to the village. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Yvonne, back to you. Tell us about the amenities that you use in the village.
The 3-part golf course,
The library, the history center, the equestrian center, let's see, pickleball, and I don't play tennis anymore. But I use Clubhouse 4, and I volunteer at Clubhouse 4, and I'm a slipcaster over there. There is lots more to do. If you think, if you're bored, it's your fault if you live here. There's 250 clubs, so there's something for everybody. And I enjoy a lot of them. Thank you.
And there are activities that do not fall into clubs.
Mine
There's still
don't.
more.
Except,
All right, Lenny, I'm
except
going to ask you
banjo.
the same question. What amenities do you use in the village?
I use Clubhouse 5 and Clubhouse 1 in the multi-purpose card rooms because I like to play poker. And I have friends that play poker with me that almost my father's age, could be in their 80s or 90s, but they're still very active. And I've organized these games every week, twice a week. And so I spend time doing that. I also enjoy playing the three-hole, the golf course, the short golf course, and sometimes pickleball as well. Those would be my main activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, same question.
Again, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question. Since I've joined the board and been very active, I don't use as much or as many of the amenities as I had hoped to be using. Prior to that, I was always using the Clubhouse 1 and the fitness center there. And I guess, and I did a lot of walking around the community. Okay, I don't do that as much because of my activities on the board. Plus, I also work as a consultant, and that's taking up a lot of my time right now too. So, but actually, the amenity that I enjoy, actually, most of all, is my neighbors. I live in a little area where I've got just the best neighbors, okay, and the dogs. Love the dogs, and so that's part of my joy when I walk out and I'm walking to a meeting here, and I see some of my favorite puppies, some of my favorite people, and I get a chance to actually chat with the puppies and chat with the owners. So I guess that sounds boring, but for me it's fulfilling because you get to chat with your neighbors, understand what's going on in their lives, you get to share some things. And a lot of times I think in the past, in the homes that I've lived in before, you're going to work, you hardly ever see your neighbor, and you just don't get that sense of community. So the biggest amenity for me is the sense of community here in Laguna Woods.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, same question.
Yeah, I figured that was coming. I'm going to follow up on what Jim says because community is everything to me. It's been a great place to volunteer. It's been a great place to be a part of. I feel secure. If I'm stupid, it's not going to protect me, but basically secure in this community. It's a very welcoming community, especially for women who are basically about 73% of this community are women. I volunteer at the History Center, so I am their communications director, and in that do make contact with the Globe and the Breeze and see things you see from the History Center are generally from me. I'm a great proponent of the library. As we know, you don't get any more credit now, Yvonne, or Juanita, I've already said enough. I participate in the Restaurant 19. I do that. But I think the most important thing is this community and all of these amenities that we have supports and bolsters my investment, my money in this community. And I think that's why it's important to remember that when you participate in the community, it's a good thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bunny?
So the things that I've enjoyed here ever since I moved in was the school. As you know, I like to learn new things. And I took photography classes, and when I first came in here, of course, I took investment classes. But I enjoy the fitness center, the pool, the fitness classes, entertainment, three-par golf course, and of course, photography. So thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go back to Yvonne. Yvonne, what is the relationship between GRF and the GRF Trust?
That's our governing document. The trust is the document that we have to abide by. Or maybe I'm not answering your question correctly. because-
Why is it our governing document? Why does it affect GRF as a association? Are there any other governing documents?
Yes, I have. But I don't understand what you're trying to ask me. That's the big problem.
Okay,
What are they? What do? They're the governing documents. The trust is the governing documents. Okay, for the GRF that tells us what to do, how to manage, how to spend, all of those things.
okay,
Okay.
thank you. Lenny, how many boards does GRF interact with? Would you name them, please?
How many, can you say that again?
How many other boards does GRF interact with? And will you name them, please?
There's United, there's Third, and there's Mutual 50. And those are the three boards that are interfacing with GRF.
Okay. And how do we interact with those boards?
I think there's members of GRF, the members of United, and members of Third that are representing their own boards on GRF. And so they have a chance to represent their boards when they go to their monthly meetings or attend the committee meetings and get to share some of the things that are of concern from their board perspective on GRF when they're at their committee meetings or at their board meetings.
Okay. Catherine? Jim, excuse me, I didn't want to there. What's your understanding of the corporate relationship between GRF and VMS? One board you forgot.
Good question. Well, first of all, the GRF role is to administer, primarily responsible for administering the trust. And I won't go into all the details of that, but that's, and to manage the amenities and common services, not with the mutuals. The VMS board is the board of directors for the corporate VMS. VMS is a separate corporation wholly owned by us and managed by the VMS board, and the members or the shareholders, if you will, are the residents and the mutuals. So that's why when we have members meetings, okay, because they in fact it is the mutual board members that are making the selections today. That's part of the corporate bylaws, if you will, and that came about, by the way, when the transition from PCM to VMS came. So there's a long history behind that too. But to your original question, the relationship is VMS is a corporate board. VMS board is a corporate board. They oversee the corporation called VMS. GRF is a HOA board designed to oversee the amenities and the common ground for Laguna Woods Village.
And what is their relationship to the GRF board?
Well, the relationship, I don't think there's not I'll call it formal relationship. There's obviously there's an interrelationship between all of us boards, but I don't believe there's one does not manage the other or oversee the other. It's the corporate board is, we have a relationship because we appoint some of the board of directors. That's if you're talking about that. We do appoint representatives from GRF there, so we have a representation there, but we have no control over that board.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, has there been any decision made by GRF during the past couple of years that you disagreed with? And if so, how would you have handled it differently?
Wow, that's kind of a loaded question. I'm sure there are times that I've disagreed, but I believe in the value of a board, and the board as a whole making whatever decision they make is okay with me. That's what it has to be. They have more information than I would have. I don't consider myself a total outsider. I do keep up as best I can with my other duties in the community. I think that, wow, I don't know, because I don't know the in-depth decisions that were made by the board, how I would change that. Or if I could. If I had been on the board, perhaps I would have been more vocal, but I would have had to have a lot more information than I do today to answer this question. Thank you.
Okay. Bunny, I'm going to go back a little with that. What is your understanding of the corporate relationship between GRF and VMS?
I'm going to go back to the management agreement, okay? So we have a management agreement with VMS, and basically United and Third and GRF are the owners, okay? They're the owners of VMS. And so I bring up the management agreement because the relationship is that we oversee, the operations. VMS says that they will follow the governing documents. And so the relationship basically is the same as it is the board with staff, is that we oversee them, and it's up to okay, I'm going to put my words right, okay? We basically oversee the operation, whatever we're responsible for, okay, which means the common area and some of the administration, especially like security and that sort of thing. But what they do is they are responsible for to also see that they follow the governing documents, and that currently they are responsible for helping improve some of their efficiencies and that sort of thing. So we still are in the same position where we oversee the VMS board and VMS. Does that explain it better? I know the people are confused, but
No, I think you use the right terms, that we are the owners.
yes, we are. And those
VMS.
owners, I'm going to say, are the directors. It's not the community.
Right.
It's the directors. And it's set up as the same structure that we have with GRF. And GRF, a lot of people don't understand that the corporate members are the ones that write our bylaws. We don't have much control. We are obligated to follow bylaws that are approved and written by the corporate members. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Bunny.
And we can go into the longer story if you want.
Now, well, this is not only to get to know you, but also to educate our
Thank you.
residents and members that are watching. I'm going to go back to a personal question.
Yikes.
All right. Yvonne, what was your favorite age growing up and why?
I think probably in my 20s.
And why?
Because I had a good knee. Both of my knees were good back then. And we owned a ranch, and we had lots of animals and kids to raise, and it was just a fun time, you know. And my kids were in school.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2 sons. And it was just a memorable time for me.
Okay.
When those years.
That's what we want to know. Lenny, how about you? What was your favorite age growing up and why?
I think my favorite age was during my college years. And when I was about 18, 19, and 20, I went to University of Southern California. And during freshman year and sophomore year, first 2 years of college, I was in a dormitory on Fraternity Row. And if anyone knows Fraternity Row, it's basically 28th Street in downtown Los Angeles. That's all fraternities, except our particular house was all dorm guys. We didn't have the money that the fraternity guys had. And we were surrounded by sororities on both sides of our house. So it was a very, very interesting and happy times that we had. We had a lot of good camaraderie with people, and it was the most, I think, the most freedom time, most free time, and also the most growing time that an individual has when they're away from home for the first time, and reaching out and exploring other people in different socioeconomic backgrounds and learning from people and understanding people. And so those were the best years. Those were the most free years in my life. Thank you.
you. Jim, how about you?
Wow. You know, I was listening to everybody else, and I struggle with the answer until I start to think about a particular event where I think I grew up. And that was, I was 25. I was working for IBM. I came back to my home in Washington, D.C. And during that time, I was struggling to grow up. You know, your parents are your parents, and they treat you a certain way. And so I was actually rebelling because now I'm a grown adult, and I got professional at IBM and all those wonderful things. And I remember I treated my dad not very well as a result of me struggling to grow up. And so on the way back, driving back, it's about a 4-hour trip, I started to weep as to how I treated him. Because he didn't deserve that. Greatest dad in the world. So I picked up the phone. After I got back, I picked up the phone, and I apologized. We had a long conversation. And that was a turning point in my life, true turning point in my life. When I grew up, and my dad accepted me as a grown-up. And so I know it's one event, but it's the start of an age, if you will. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Catherine, how about you? What was your favorite age growing up and why?
Well, I'm going to start out by saying today. Today is my favorite day and my favorite age. But if I went back, besides the birth of both my sons, I would say one of the most pivotal times was in my 50s. I was working in Washington, D.C., and it became a difficult time. And so I had to leave the nonprofit I was at, and it was because something was said to me that stuck so much in my craw and in my mind that I moved back to California, was living at Fresno at the time, and went back to the university to continue and get my degree in journalism, mass communications, and public relations, because the words that were said to me that I wasn't good enough is that you don't even have a degree. So I went and got one. So that was a proud day.
Very good. Thank you. Bunny?
Well, I had to do a lot of thinking because the fact that I always think I'm on a journey, and each journey has different chapters. But one of the first chapters, which was really wonderful, is when I was 17 when I graduated from high school. And so I went back to a college in Iowa. California girl going back to college in Iowa. You can imagine what a difference in the culture. And it was such a delight. I can tell you, this was a very, very small town, and unless you were 21, you couldn't have a car. You know, you had one theater, you had 2 restaurants, and everybody knew each other. And it was such a wonderful and friendly environment, and it was so different than California, who is so big that it's hard to get, close to people unless you're in an organization. So I always remember that, and I'm thankful. But I do think life is a journey. I enjoy each chapter, and I look forward to the next chapter. So thank you.
Okay. Back to Yvonne. Yvonne, where should a board member's loyalty lie and why?
Well, a board member's loyalty should be with the board that they're on. And when a board makes a decision, even if you disagree, it's the majority rules, and you should
Honor.
not go behind the board's back and try to undermine the board. So I believe that your loyalties lie with your board. Thank you.
Lenny, do you agree with that? Where do you feel board members' loyalty should lie and why?
Yeah, the board, I would agree with that, and also agree that a board member has a fiduciary right, a fiduciary responsibility to the members to serve honestly and faithfully and to support the members. But as Yvonne said, he or she owes a responsibility to the board ultimately. And if the board decides to vote a certain way, he or she should support that vote whichever way it goes. And so he or she would have ultimate responsibility to the board, but has fiduciary responsibility to its members.
Okay, thank you. Jim, what do you think?
Well, I partially agree with both, but I think the ultimate responsibility is to the residents and the community. And so the decision-making process should incorporate all the elements that we can bring that affect any member of that community. Most decisions are multifaceted. If they were one-dimensional, it'd be easy. But so we have to consider everything, all the residents, some of the clubs, all of the clubs. I don't know that there is one single commonality, and that is what we believe as a board that is best for our community, both now and in the future. So the loyalty, if you will, is to the residents. Now, secondarily, okay, when a board votes on something, it's voted. And everybody, at least in our board, we all get a chance to weigh in on all of the discussions. And sometimes we have some good heated discussions. In fact, that's good. But at the end of the day, all of us, are looking out for the residents in our best interest, or as best we can, individually and collectively.
Thank you. Catherine, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I underlined and I wrote down the word loyalty because that is a large thing that weighs on board members' mind. The mutual boards are voted in by their constituents. The GRF board is voted in by the corporate members, who are those people that were hired or by the residents. So the loyalty is twofold. One is as a board member to be doing your duty. I agree with the people prior to me, and I'm sure Bunny will agree, that your loyalty is to that board. That has been tested on many occasions. It was tested when I was on the United Board. There are things that the loyalty falls to the board, that you must respect the majority rule on the board. That is your job, that is your loyalty, but you are also loyal, especially the housing mutuals, to the people that elected them. So it's really important when you use the word loyalty, has a lot broader scope than I can imagine right now, but it's important.
Thank you. Bunny, how do you feel about that? Where does a board member's loyalty lie and why?
Well, the board member's loyalty lies first to the corporation. That means to GRF, okay? And where it comes as far as the loyalty to the residents and the members is that that's why we're there. We're there to make the decision, the best decisions that benefit the community. We're looking out for the community. And it's really best that when the people that are applying for the board are interested in what's best for the community. But we have to work together as a board, and when we vote on something unanimously, and you know that the board has researched it and discussed it thoroughly and made a decision, I find it really hard when an individual board member decides to go behind our back and push another agenda that the board has already voted on. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Yvonne, what has been your favorite job pre-Laguna Woods Village career?
Well, I like working for a nonprofit. In Coto de Caza. We had a lot of repairs, and it was fun going around making sure that all of these repairs got done and bringing the facility back to its former glory, let's put it that way. I can remember working with Pete Uberon's committee. I don't know if you know who that is. He ran the Olympics in '84. We had a portion of the Olympics up in Coto de Caza. That was grand fun. And it was fun making sure that all of the amenities were up to their standards.
Was this a paid or a volunteer job?
Volunteer. I said volunteer. I volunteer my time. I was also, this is of little note, I was a volunteer firefighter. They called them paid call firefighters. Every time I went out, I got $6. And yeah, and I rode on the tailboard once. And so if anybody knows what that is, that's the back of the fire engine. We hit a speed bump and I could see over the top of the fire engine. Not a fun time. Anyway, and so that's another one of my volunteer jobs. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Lenny, how about you? What was your favorite job, career, position before you came to Laguna Woods Village?
Okay, one of my favorite jobs was working for a wheel company. And it was called NK Wheel Company. Some of you may have heard of it. It's still around. But during the time that I was with NK, we supplied wheels to Toyota which was our largest customer. And at the time, I was fortunate enough to have supplied the largest inline accessory wheel program ever in Toyota's history. And we had to supply wheels over a 5-year period, just in time to their factories. And if anyone knows just in time, if you miss a just in time shipment, you get sued thousands of dollars. You shut down a factory. So we were responsible for making sure that every shipment arrives on time every day for 5 years. And during that time, I had, of course, profit and loss experience, making sure that the program was profitable. But it was 500,000 wheels over a period of 5 years. It was the largest program, as I said. I had to have staff to make sure that it ran properly. We had to have the proper equipment to make sure the wheels were marked properly, and they were tested. And I still see some of them. They were from the year 2000 to 2005 from the Camry EX. And you might see some of them driving around Laguna Woods. So any of those vehicles that you see driving around have those particular wheels on it. But that was my favorite position in my career.
Thank you. Jim, how about you?
Wow. My favorite position actually happened fairly recently. My wife had gotten ill, and she was actually in a coma. And a friend of mine, fraternity brother, asked me to volunteer, or not volunteer, but to come in and help his church as a financial director, because the current financial director had taken ill. So I came in, and I realized over time that they were running a deficit and didn't understand or realize it, because they had a building program as well as their regular operations. So when the money was coming in, it looked like they were doing well until they started to bill. When they started to bill, the money drained very quickly. The project manager, that is someone from the church who was managing the project, kind of turned the project over to me. So I had to work directly with the construction folks. And once I realized the money was not going to be there to pay him, 4 months before it went down, I said, look, I told the developer, we're not going to be able to pay you. So you need to start shutting down the organization. So we didn't end up with mechanics liens and all the other stuff that goes along with not paying your bill. So then I turned to the operations, and we were able to convince the staff and the church leaders that they not only were running a deficit, but they were actually running out of money, and were going to run out of money within, say, a 4 or 5 months, 6-month period. We then got the entire church together. This is a fairly large church, and we got volunteers. We changed some of the organization. We got volunteers to replace some of the staff activities. We took staff reductions, and we were able to turn the church around financially and spiritually at the same time. And it's not my church, by the way, but we were able to turn it around financially and spiritually. So that was probably the most satisfying experience. Even though I have plenty of good experiences with IBM and other companies, this was probably my most satisfying.
Thank you. Catherine, how about you?
I was one of the jobs that was the most satisfactory and exciting, and just it was a real trip. Was I'm development director for San Mateo County for Special Olympics, and that included fundraising, doing media, doing special events, and that's all fine, working with the community and raising funds. But what changed me the most was working with the athletes. And everybody says, oh, Special Olympic, all those little kids. Well, it's kids all the way through adults. And some of it's not pretty and some of it's wonderful and exciting. But they changed me, because this is a group of people with some disability of sorts, who knows, that just totally loved being there. And you would see such joy from these participants, and you couldn't help but be changed by seeing absolute, sheer, unadulterated joy. So that not only I helped Special Olympics, but they helped me. Thank you.
Bunny, how about you? What did you feel was the most satisfying job that you had?
I have to go back to my journey. You know, I started working when I was 14 years old. And I actually did not retire until I was 70. And so it's been, my whole life has been raising kids and figuring out how to survive and how to benefit and move on and make enough money, you know, to be able to provide all those. So I've had a lot of different jobs, and part of that journey was where do I find where I fit the most? What is my skill set? You know, and so I think it was a hard transition from each job and to go on to this journey, but one of the most satisfying things, and where I learned where my talent really was when I went to work for Santa Fe Energy. Like, it was a 100-year-old company, and they never wrote their own contracts. They had contracts boilerplate that went out to the field, and people were, and if you can imagine in San Bernardino, all the rigs and everything, all the jobs that basically go on as far as oil companies. And so I was the first person, I was hired as a contract administrator. I was the first person to write terms and conditions for a 100-year-old company. And so it started my career off, and it just became very natural to me. And so from there, I wrote a lot of boilerplate contracts that helped provide efficiency and better productivity and minimize the liability. And I have been doing that ever since. I do that here today. So thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, we have one more question that was sent in by one of our directors. So we'll go back to you, Yvonne. What are the best practices and organizational changes you'd recommend VMS take on based on GRF needs?
Boy, that's a trick question.
Yeah, you want me to repeat it?
Yes.
All right.
There you go.
What are the best practices and organizational changes you would recommend VMS take on based on GRF needs?
Well, I think that they're doing it. They're doing focus, VMS is doing focus groups now. And that feedback that they're getting from the focus groups will help our committee and GRF on the things that we need to improve within the community. And we just heard about them the other day, if you remember. And I think that that is a real important aspect of what they do and how they can help GRF.
Okay. Lenny, how about you? What are the best practices and organizational changes would you recommend VMS take on based on GRF needs?
Yeah, I think that the number one issue that we have is we're not able to get the best employees as fast as possible. We have a lot of vacancies in our employees, and I think it's something that VMS should look at from an HR standpoint is beyond money. There's other ways to attract employees. We have to look at, maybe it is money, maybe it is an incentive, maybe it's a bonus, maybe it's more time off. There's other things that we could offer an employee other than money, and maybe HR, by using other outside consultants or outside HR firms, could realize some of those ways of attracting good talent. Because in board meetings, I've heard for the last several months that we've had open positions, and we have to be able to fill those positions to adequately service our community. So we've got to come up with ways of attracting that talent, even when we're competing against McDonald's and Wendy's, who are offering $18 an hour. We're not able to do that, but we have to find ways of offering other incentives to get the best employees we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, how about you?
You know, as close as I am to a lot of the things that VMS is doing, I would hesitate to get specific detail as to what can be done. What I do see from my perspective is an effort for continuous improvement, involvement with the boards, understanding what the residents need, what the boards need, and a continuing effort to meet those needs. What I see on the outside and partially inside is an atmosphere of wanting to serve, continuous improvement, listening to our complaints, understanding that they can't manage, you don't manage by complaint, you have to manage the complaints. But there's going to be a complaint about almost everything we do, even if we believe it's perfectly correct. So it is a challenging assignment. I think the best practices that they are actually employing is continuous improvement. They're always seeking ways to do better. We may not like the results at times on specific issues, but I don't see that to be the fault of the executive team or management. I see that as just part of the fabric of an HOA, especially one this large.
Thank you. Catherine, you have some thoughts on that?
A few. First of all, I'm surrounded by current board members, and they have information that I'm not privileged to yet. I perhaps will be, but I think it's important to recognize that best practices are always being reviewed and updated, because any board or any association anywhere needs to remain relevant. That means where we are today, what are we doing today? What do we see coming down the pike that we need to do tomorrow? But other than that, I'm really not in a position at this point to be able to go into a great deal of depth about it, but I appreciate the answers from the current directors.
Thank you. Bunny, how about you?
Okay, state question again.
Certainly. This one. What are the best practices and organizational changes you would recommend VMS take on based on GRF needs?
Well, first I have to say that it isn't just GRF needs, because VMS serves the entire community, it serves all the boards, okay? So it's not GRF needs. And I basically had the privilege, ever since I was on the board, to really get close to a lot of the practices and the processes that happen. So what I saw, is our lack of technology, and basically everybody, the employees having to deal with manual processes that take them a very long time. So the best thing right now is the ERP system, which will clear up a lot of those best practices just by installing it, and will also provide efficiency going forward. I could talk all day on this, but
You got another minute?
I have another minute. Well, purchasing, okay, I got really involved in that from the very beginning. Help them write standard contracts, so that they didn't have to go to the lawyer every time that they wrote a contract. This is what they were doing. They didn't have a really good idea of best purchasing practices, going out to bid, that sort of thing. So I was very involved with the purchasing policy, which you follow now, as far as bids and finding the best price for the community. So that's mostly what I've been involved in, and which I'd like to stay involved, okay? Because even yesterday, we had a meeting with Adventico on basically how the process is going to be for the purchasing process for the ERP. Okay, Only have 7 minutes? I could go on for an hour, but
Nope,
you're not
you got
going to let me.
Thank you. All right, back to you, Yvonne. How do the demographics, and by that I mean things like age, sex, language, culture, of Laguna Woods Village influence GRF?
The demographics, and I can only speak to the part that I work at. The demographics are getting younger. And so what I think is that we need to get our ERP system, because the younger people are more in tune with using the computer, and so our village will run smoother with the ERP system, and and the younger people will understand. I'm stumbling because I don't want to repeat what Bunny has said.
Oh, go ahead.
This is the answer. One of the things that the ERP system is going to do for our residents is, as we go along, there's going to be modules. And first, we're starting with purchasing, and then it's on to other things, and then way down at the end, it's where the things that I'm interested in, we'll be able to go online and make reservations, buy tickets for the pack, do all of those kind of things. And that's what I see as important.
Okay, Lenny, I'm going to ask you the same question. How do the demographics, and by that I mean things like age, sex, language, culture, of Laguna Woods Village influence GRF?
Yeah, I agree that we do have younger demographics moving into Laguna Woods, and in order to continue to attract the younger age, meaning people in their 50s and 60s, into our community versus other senior communities. Some of them have good amenities, probably not like ours, but we have to make sure that our amenities, and part of GRF responsibility is the amenities, making sure that our amenities are updated based on the needs of the younger people that are looking to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. And so that we can remain competitive and we can continue to get people to want to move to Laguna Woods. So that means when we update our clubhouses, we have to also update them based on which activities does this younger generation that is moving into Laguna Woods have most interest in. Maybe they don't have interest in shuffleboard anymore. Maybe they want to do more pickleball. And as we know, that everything changes by the years. And as the people get older in our community, they use less of our amenities. And therefore, the people that are going to be using most of our amenities are going to be the younger people. And therefore, we have to be very vigilant and be updating those amenities and taking care of them and making sure they look modern as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, the demographics have been constantly changing since there was a Laguna Woods Village. Age is just but one dimension of that, and I dare say it's kind of like inventory, because age, since I've been here, the average age has been 77, 78, and yet we know that over the last 10 years, it's always a constant in and out. So with that said, there's also the changing demographics in other areas, language, etc. All of those have to be considered especially when GRF starts to make some of the long-range decisions that it has to make, and it has to be in consideration. I wish it was a one-dimensional decision in many cases, because it makes it a lot easier. For instance, if it's money, it's one-dimensional. However, when you start to consider what different demographics want in their recreation, or what they need in their recreation, and what their needs are. It can be daunting, and at the same time, it is inspiring as to how the current board makes those decisions. And I'll just take the whole bus situation that we just went through. Many of us, if you ask us, one of the reasons you moved here is because, gee, when I can't drive anymore, there's our bus system to take me to get groceries, et cetera, et cetera. However, the bus decision, there was a financial impact to that, and it would have been positive over time. So you got to balance the issue of numbers, cost, versus what the impact on the community. And some of the decisions are not hard and fast. There's a lot of soft consequences. I'll call them soft because they're not money, that to the decisions we make. I think we got that one right. And so I think I'm proud of the way the board works today from that perspective.
Thank you. Kath?
Well, I saw the demographics as a docent, and I saw the people that were coming into the community, and younger is always relevant at this point. You know, if you were born the year before I was, a year after, whatever. I think it's important for us to remember that these are always changing, but what we have been seeing and what I heard from people on docent tours is they're more interested in the electronic side, the streaming, broadband changes for streaming, and shuffleboard might come back. I mean, you know, I know it's here already, but you never know because things get redone. I think the GRF board, the demographics are expressed in people coming to meetings. It's expressed by emails. It's expressed by clubs and organizations that talk about what's going on in the village. And I think that the GRF board's responsibility is to have their ears and mind open as to what those changes are. And as Jim was saying, the demographic, you know, on language especially has been very, very important. There's large groups of our population who English is very much their second language. And this is very hard. So I think that not only are we changing for electronics, for the computers, for updating, for streaming, we're updating the classes that are given, the organizations that make life work for us in the community. And the demographics will change and rotate and be up and down. But one of the most important demographics we have is people wanting to be here, and we need to take care of them. Thank you.
Bunny, how about you?
So I'm going to ask you to repeat your question again.
Absolutely. How do the demographics, things like age, sex, language, culture, in Laguna Woods Village influence GRF?
I have to say, repeat what everyone else says. We have to keep up with the trends, okay? And I basically think that GRF and staff do what they can do to help keep up with the trends. We have to be able to keep moving, and we have to help keep moving, and especially when we talk about streaming and some of these other things that I know staff is already working on. This is what is amazing to me about our staff, you know, because they seem to be on the forefront as what needs to be done, like improving our website, improving, you know, just going forward. But I lost my train of thought, and I apologize.
That's all right. Okay. A lot going on.
Okay, so one of the things that we brought up in strategic planning in this last meeting was basically to be able to get the utilization and to possibly have a consultant come in here and look at our utilization and see if there are some trends that we need to change at this point in time. I could go way back, you know, because there has been attempts for so many things that that people have wanted more things, like they wanted more trails, or they wanted, to have an outdoor theater, or they wanted a covered swimming pool and things like that. So I would think that a consultant would be able to come in and help us to understand what those trends are and then guide, our planning towards those trends.
Okay. We're coming down to the wire now. Yvonne,
Ready?
how can GRF address the concern that it takes too long to get things done in Laguna Woods Village?
Oh my gosh, now you're talking about process. That's my question. What can we do to speed up the process to get things done? With the board only meeting and committees only meeting once a month, it's really hard to get the process. I've tried to figure out how we can speed it up. But if we're trying to do, let's use the example of Building E. We take Building E, we decide that GRF, with the help of staff, decide that we need to replace that building. Then we have to have a meeting with the corporate members to get their permission to do the research to do that, spend the first $500,000 to do that. Then if they reject it, then we got to go back to the drawing board, and then we have to start all over again. And of course, M&C upstairs, they've been working on this problem too. And I don't have an answer. If somebody else has an answer,
Well, let's just see. Lenny, how would you answer that question? How can GRF address the concern that it takes such a long time to get things done in the village?
So I think it goes back to when a resident has a problem that needs to be resolved. They call up resident services, and in many cases you see letters in the Globe about people waiting 40 minutes for a response and not getting a response, not getting anyone to come out to address their issues. I guess this may be in my United days more than GRF, but it's still addressing individuals' concerns with getting things done. And I think it starts with the CEO and making sure that her direct reports are hiring the right people and hiring enough people to support all of the services that need to be provided and to provide the services on time and quickly to the residents. And if we don't have people enough to staff certain positions, of course there's going to be delays. So we need to, it goes back to the same issue that I talked about before, is finding ways of getting filled with open positions as quickly as possible and making sure the positions are well-trained and the people are in the right positions to satisfy people's problems as quickly as possible. So it's a really goes back to an HR issue, and we need to make sure that people that get hired are the best people and trained to do the right job and respond to our residents as quickly as possible with their needs.
Jim, do you have an answer?
Yeah, can you explain the premise of the question? Is
Yeah.
it get things done? What things
Well,
were you?
the complaint we hear often from residents is it takes years to get anything done. And so I'm saying, is there any way that GRF can speed things up?
Okay, so when you say years and you're directing it to GRF, you're really not talking about specific residents,
No,
repairs and
no,
things
no,
of
no,
that
I'm
nature.
talking about
You're
GRF
talking about
projects.
major issues associated with GRF. I think for some issues, that may be true. Other issues, let me back up. I look at it this way. Some issues require extensive deliberations because they're not just simple based on one element, and I've said that before. Other issues can be decided rather quickly. And I think the GRF does make quick decisions once all the facts are gathered. So to me, it's data-driven, and on top of the data, which usually gives you 75% of the answer, then comes the human content part of it. And I think once those things are done, I think the GRF board, as currently made up, makes pretty not only good, but quick decisions. So I don't necessarily agree with the premise of the question, but on the other hand, I can see where someone would have the impression that it takes too long. But that's because perhaps they don't see the deliberations and all the considerations that are taken into context in order to make some of these decisions. We've got some pretty big decisions that are coming up on us, and we've got to hear a lot of sides. If they were, again, I keep saying this, if they were one-dimensional decisions, it would be easy. If it costs X dollars and we don't want to spend it, wham, that's easy. But that's not a decision. That's not a decision. So I guess I would kind of disagree with the premise, but I think we can speed things up with more data-driven responses.
Thank you. Catherine, do you have a thought on this?
I do. Surprise. Yes, things take time, and sometimes it seems as though it's overwhelming, but these processes are in place to protect you and I. This is our money that they're working with. This is our life. This is our community. And sometimes it seems as though it's slugging along at some pace that a snail could beat. But it is important that we have this open forum at each of these procedures. There's people that look at it, respond to it, both the community directors as well as staff, outside consultants, everything. And when you start adding those in, it develops a process that can be a little bit cumbersome. But I think all in all, it's necessary for the protection of the people and the residents in this community that have an investment here.
Thank you. Bunny, how about you?
Well, I've always had a lot to say about that, okay? And one of the things is when we go through, in particular for projects, okay, that when we go through the budget process, we basically define what those projects are. And so once we define those projects and it comes to M&C and ready to be executed, that M&C has is very clear, and staff is very clear what the project is going to be. So where we run into a lot of holdups is the fact that there may be a lot of changes that is made to that original project. So the point of it is that we've got to be able to do a better job as defining just exactly what that project is and bring it forward so that M&C can work on it and process it effectively. And but when you have a project like Building E, we already know that it isn't GRF that is going to be holding up any project. And it's not staff either, okay? It just means there's a lot to be done. And so it's projected that would be, the construction would start in January of 2025. But that's just because there's a lot that has to be done. So we have to look at our processes. We have to look at how we can get it done, within a shorter period of time, because having these projects go over 5 years like they did with the PAC, and then it just came back and hit us in the face, we've got to get those projects done in a shorter period of time. And believe me, that's what I'm trying to do with Building E, so that we can go forward very quickly and not have any stumbling blocks on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to cut off the questions now, and I'm going to go to the closing statements. So each candidate has 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And this time, we're going to mix it up a little. We're going to start with Bunny.
So, James Tung and Ed Tao urged me to run for the third board.
Mike's gone.
Oh, okay, turn it on, okay. James Tung and Ed Tao urged me to run for the third board because of my diverse background. After serving on the third board for 5 years, my background and board experience really fit in providing oversight for the GRF properties. So serving on the board is my way of giving back and is a valuable opportunity for learning more about governance and leadership. Maintaining the community grounds is a primary role of the oversight of the boards. I have more input over these decisions and in turn the value of my home. So solving the problems is a big part of the oversight and the guidance of legal counsel. I help maintain the quality of living firsthand. As a board member, I have enjoyed meeting new people, building new relationships, and contributing to the success of the village. So I just want to say that the buzzword today seems to be don't spend money. So you have to ask yourself what happens to communities' upkeep if you don't spend money to maintain. GRF is responsible to meet the needs of the amenities that the residents use every day. If you don't spend money on what is needed and kick them down the road, it costs twice as much. Not spending money does not mean saving money. So my service on the board has been about saving money, looking at the investments long-term, and supporting projects that save money, improve process and contracts that save money and time. Wow.
You're right on time. All right, Catherine, can we have your closing statement?
Well, I thought about writing a closing statement, but I really wanted to hear what the questions were and the answers, because that's how we learn. And some of the things I've learned today is the quality of people we have who are running for the board, so I don't think anybody would be a mistake. But I also want to put in a vote for somebody who's coming in and maybe could turn the focus of a board by being newer in this community. I don't know what newer is, but I do believe in my strengths when I was serving the United Board was listening, taking my time before I answered, and always being prepared for whatever was coming for meetings and things of that sort. So I bring a quality of communication to this board. Bring what I have seen, especially to the GRF board as a docent, and seeing this community reflected. I bring new ideas and new thoughts and a different person or personality, and I think that's important to boards to be relevant, and that's it. I'm closed.
Very good. Jim, can we have your closing statement?
Sure. This process really isn't about me. All of us should consider that there are some critical decisions that GRF will face in the next few years, and quite frankly, it'll be sooner rather than later. Technology and industry trends are changing how content is being delivered to our homes. Streaming is quickly becoming the delivery choice. How will this impact the current investment in broadband? Trends are changing as to the utilization of facilities. Structures are aging. Inflation is impacting every decision. In many cases, as Bunny said, cost increase is no decision, or delayed decisions, cost increase with no decisions or delayed decisions and delayed implementation. These issues and more require thoughtful consideration and the avoidance of reactive thinking and personal choices. I believe the consistent and experienced and effective board leadership is critical during these times. Thus, I think the purpose of this process is a selection rather than an election. In my opinion, the current board is one of the most productive, thoughtful, versatile boards in recent history. It is not by accident. Our current leadership composition supports, encourages, and commands thoughtful and spirited debate without dissension or personal attacks. The views of all board members are heard in full and considered valuable input, and no decision is considered to be without consequences. So we take inputs are encouraged and considered necessary for balanced decision support. The recent decision with Agewell is what I consider to be balanced decision support. Impacting the current leadership via this selection process during these critical times may have a lasting negative effect. I urge you to consider this in your future deliberations of your selections.
Thank you. Lenny, can we have your closing statement, please?
Sure. I think, that we've heard some of the best and brightest amongst us today. And I think for our members going forward, we need your help within our boards, not only with United and GRF, VMS, and Third. So if you would like to volunteer, we need good volunteers going forward to represent our boards. As you know, we're trying to do the best we can for our boards and for our community, but we have very, very talented people amongst our residents, and I'd like to ask that more residents come forward if they would be willing to serve on a board, because it's a good opportunity to pay back and help your community. But as far as today's the closing remarks, if elected, I will volunteer to be on GRF Finance Committee to try and root out any waste, fraud, and abuse and replace it with best practices. I have learned over my career to be sure all of our residents are getting the best value for their hard-earned assessments. And like, for example, with the transfer fee, going back to that, we bring in, I calculated, about $7.5 million a year from the transfer fee. Doesn't mean we have to spend all of that money. We could if we don't need to spend $7.5 million on GRF for projects, we can give back some of that to our residents, because that's your money. And we should look at every project that we're going to be investing in very carefully, because a lot of our residents are on fixed incomes, and we have increasing HOA fees, increasing GRF
Speaker,
fees.
time is up.
And therefore, we have to be very vigilant on how we spend our money. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Yvonne, you want to finish us up with your closing remarks?
Oh, well, thank you. My goal is to keep our community relevant, using best practices to keep our facilities in good repair and upgrading when necessary, never putting our corporation in financial jeopardy. My board experience is in recreation, and I have always tried to improve the experience for our residents. Serving on the GRF board, overseeing a multi-million-dollar annual budget demands a business background. My 30 years senior management experience at Boeing, and I've owned 2 businesses and was on the board of directors for a not-for-profit called Silver Bronze Corporation, which owned Costa de Casa Country Club, which had all manners of recreation. I think my extensive business background meets the challenges of overseeing our clubhouses and our recreation facilities. I'm an advocate of our community. I live here, I enjoy, and want to preserve all our amenities. And that's why I volunteer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to close with some general information. There are 27 corporate members, 11 from United, 11 from Third, and 5 from 50, or the towers. They are the ones who vote for the GRF candidates, not the residents. So I noticed there's only 8 of those directors in attendance today. I'm not sure how many are on Zoom. But I encourage you, since you know who the candidates are, if you have further questions, that you contact and talk to them. I think they're going to stick around for a few minutes afterwards if you have other questions or thoughts. You need to know the candidates, and the selection will be at the next corporate members meeting. Did we get a date on that?
November 9th.
November 9th. Okay. So that's quite a while. You've got time to talk to these people, find out more of what you feel they would offer to GRF. And we're a little ahead of time, but I will turn it back to Joan to see if there's any finishing remarks she has.
Thank you,
Well,
Juanita.
thank you to our candidates.
Yes, thank you to everyone. I hope that I trust you found this very informative. This has been one of the most informative Meet the Candidates meetings I've ever attended. Thank you, Juanita, for the great questions. I hope that everybody had fun in answering the questions, and I hope that you, the audience, have gained a great deal of information about the folks here. This meeting will be replayed Thursday, October 27th at 1:30 p.m. on Village Television. And once again, I'll remind the candidates that you have appointments upstairs to have your statements videotaped. And those videotapes will be presented every Wednesday at 3:30 from October 12th through November 2nd. So with that, I am going to call this meeting adjourned. And thank you very much, all of you.